The war room was quiet. Not the good kind of quiet. It was the quiet of people who had given up hope. The quiet of creatures waiting to die. Admiral Yuna sat at the far end of the table. She was small compared to the alien commanders around her. Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot. Her uniform was clean but worn. She had not slept in 3 days, but her eyes were sharp. The flagship Eternal Dawn was dying. Everyone knew it. The great ship had been hit too many times. Its shields were failing. Its engines were coughing like a sick animal. But it was still the biggest ship the Coalition had left, so they held their meetings here. They planned their defeats here. 12 species sat around that table. The Mirakai, with their hard shells and clicking mouths. The Vorath, beings made of living crystal that glowed with soft light. The tall Endari with their 4 arms and sad eyes. And others. So many others. All of them had once ruled great empires. All of them had worlds full of their people. Now, they were refugees. Now they were running. The Void Swarm had taken everything. High Strategist Korath was a Vorath elder. His body was made of blue crystal that hummed when he spoke. He stood at the center of the room and waved his hand. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a map of the galaxy. Most of the map was dark. Black zones marked where the swarm had already won, where planets had been eaten, where billions had died. "This is our situation," Korath said. His voice was like wind through broken glass. The swarm controls 87% of known space. Their fleet numbers in the trillions. Their central intelligence, the Nexus, coordinates all of them perfectly. He pointed to a small cluster of light on the map. "This is us. 42 ships. 800,000 survivors across all species. We are all that remains." No one spoke. What was there to say? The Mirakai ambassador made a sound with her mandibles. "We should scatter. Hide. Perhaps some of us will survive." "For how long?" asked General Tom of the Endari. His voice was tired. "The swarm does not stop. It does not rest. It finds everything eventually. Then we fight," someone said. "With what?" Korath's crystal body flickered with frustration. "I have run every simulation, every possible battle plan, every strategy our combined minds can create." He waved his hand again. Numbers appeared in the air. "The results are always the same. We lose. We die. The probability of victory is 0.00%. Yuna watched the numbers float above the table. She had seen them before. She had studied them for weeks. And she had found something the crystals had missed. "I have a plan," she said. Her voice was calm. Not loud, but somehow it cut through the room like a blade. Every alien head turned to look at her. The Mirakai ambassador clicked her mandibles in what might have been laughter. "You? A human? Your species has been traveling among the stars for only 300 years. We have been here for millennia. What could you possibly know that we do not?" Yuna stood up. She was shorter than everyone in the room. "It did not matter. I know that your simulations are wrong." Korath's glow turned cold. "Explain. Your simulations assume that soldiers act logically, that they will retreat when the odds are bad, that they will surrender when death is certain." Yuna smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Humans do not do that. She touched the console in front of her. A new image appeared above the table. It showed the Nexus, the brain of the swarm. A perfect sphere of dark metal floating in the heart of a dead star. "The Nexus is here," Yuna said. "Destroy it, and every swarm unit in the galaxy loses its mind. They become stupid, confused, helpless. We know this," General Tom said. "We also know it is impossible to reach. The dead star's gravity would crush any ship. 17 billion drones protect it. No fleet could break through. I am not talking about a fleet." Yuna's eyes were bright. "I am talking about one ship. A small team. We do not break through. We sneak through. Silence again. But this time it was a different kind of silence. This was the silence of creatures who wanted to believe but were afraid to hope. Who would you send on such a mission? Korath asked. Who would volunteer to die for a plan that cannot work? Yuna did not hesitate. Commander Park Jinho. The name moved through the room like a cold wind. Every alien knew that name. Even the ones who pretended humans did not matter. Park Jinho, the ghost. The man who had survived the burning nebula when his entire fleet was destroyed. He had floated in space for 6 days, with nothing but a broken suit and his own stubbornness. When rescue finally came, he was still alive, still fighting. Park Jinho. The soldier who had held a moon called Kira, 7 for 16 days, against 300,000 swarm units. He had started with 200 soldiers. He ended with 11. But he held the moon until the civilians could escape. Park Jinho. The human that even the machines had learned to fear. He is one man, the Mirakai ambassador said. One small, soft, breakable human. Yes, Yuna agreed. That is exactly why this will work. Korath was quiet for a long moment. His crystal body shifted through colors as he thought. Finally, he spoke. I have calculated the probability of success for this plan. If everything goes perfectly, if every impossible thing happens exactly as needed. He paused. The probability is approximately 1%. Everyone expected Yuna to look disappointed. She did not. Instead, her smile grew wider. 1%, she repeated. That is more than enough. The Mirakai ambassador made a harsh clicking sound. You are mad. All humans are mad. Perhaps. Yuna was already walking toward the door. But we are also still alive. Can you say the same about everyone who was logical? Everyone who calculated the odds and made the smart choice? She stopped at the door and looked back at the room full of ancient, powerful, defeated creatures. Give me the ship, give me Jinho, and give me 6 volunteers who are willing to be a little mad. Her voice was quiet but certain. We will end this war. Or, we will die. Trying. Either way, the swarm will learn something important. What? General Tom asked. Yuna opened the door. Light from the corridor spilled into the dark room. They will learn why the galaxy should have been afraid of humans from the very beginning. She left. The door closed behind her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Korath made a sound that might have been a sigh. Prepare the ship, he said. Let the humans have their 1%. The Mirakai ambassador shook her head. This is foolish. Yes, Korath agreed. His crystal body flickered with something that might have been curiosity, or might have been hope. But I find myself wanting to see what happens when humans decide that impossible is just a word. And so it began. The last mission. The final chance. A plan with a 1% probability of success, in the hands of a species too stubborn to know when to quit. Jinho's room was small. Just a bed, a desk, and a chair. No decorations, no personal items. Just one photograph, taped to the wall above his bed. The photograph showed a little girl with bright eyes and a big smile. She was holding a stuffed rabbit and laughing at something outside the frame. Her name was Hana. She was 7 years old. She was waiting for her father on Earth. Jinho looked at that photograph every morning when he woke up, every night before he slept. It reminded him why he was still fighting, why he had not given up, like so many others. He was sitting on his bed when Yuna came to his door. He had been cleaning his old rifle. Not because it needed cleaning, just because it gave his hands something to do while his mind wandered far away. Commander Park, Yuna said from the doorway. Jinho did not look up. I have a mission. I heard. News traveled fast on a dying ship. You want me to fly into a dead star and destroy the brain of an enemy that has killed half the galaxy? Yes. Now he looked up. Yuna was standing with her hands behind her back. Her face was calm. Her eyes were not. Her eyes were burning with something fierce and desperate and unbreakable. The Vorath say we have a 1% chance, Jinho said. They are optimistic. He almost laughed. Almost. How many people do you need? Yuna walked into the room. She pulled a small datapad from her pocket and handed it to him. 5. Plus you and me. 7 total. Jinho looked at the names on the screen. He knew some of them. Knew their stories. Knew why they might be crazy enough to say yes. Lieutenant Kim Taeho, he read out loud. Demolitions. The best. Yuna confirmed. They say he can make a bomb out of starlight and hope. 19 missions that everyone said were impossible. 19 times he came back alive. Jinho nodded slowly. He had met Taeho once, years ago. A quiet man with careful hands and sad eyes. He had lost his home colony to the swarm, lost his wife, lost his son, but he kept fighting, kept building bombs, kept making the enemy pay for what they took. Sergeant Han Minji, Jinho continued. Pilot. She flew a cargo ship through the broken field last year. You remember the broken field? That asteroid storm near Kira Station? Jinho remembered. The broken field was a nightmare of spinning rocks and gravity wells. Flying through it was suicide. Flying through it in a slow cargo ship was something worse than suicide. She saved 2,000 civilians, Yuna said. The rescue ships could not reach them in time. So she went instead. Alone. In a ship that had no weapons, no shields, and an engine that was held together with tape and prayers. And she survived? She laughed the whole way through. Said it was fun. Jinho shook his head. Fun. Only a human would call certain death fun. He looked at the next name. Specialist Li Wujin. Engineer. He can fix anything. Give him scrap metal and broken parts and he will build you a hyperdrive. He has been kicked out of the military twice for not following orders. Re-enlisted twice when we needed him. Why does he keep coming back? Yuna was quiet for a moment. He says machines make sense to him. People do not. But when people are in danger, something inside him cannot walk away. The fourth name was familiar too. Corporal Choi Nari. Communications. She is special, Yuna said. She spent 3 years studying the swarm, learning how they think, how they communicate. She understands them better than anyone. Bye. I heard rumors about her. They say she went strange, that she stares at walls and talks to herself. She talks to the numbers in her head. The patterns. The swarm is a pattern, Jinho. A very complex, very dangerous pattern. Nari sees that pattern clearly, maybe too clearly. Yuna paused. But she is exactly what we need. Jinho set down the datapad. 4 names. 4 broken people. 4 humans who had looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. And the 5th? He asked. Yuna sat down on the chair across from him. For the first time, she looked tired. Really tired. Me, she said. Jinho raised an eyebrow. Admirals do not go on suicide missions. This admiral does. She leaned forward. I made this plan, Jinho. I convinced the council to approve it. I asked these people to risk their lives for a 1% chance. Her voice was steady, but her hands were tight fists in her lap. I will not ask others to die for something I am not willing to die for myself. They looked at each other for a long moment. 2 soldiers, 2 humans. Both of them tired. Both of them scared. Neither of them willing to show it. When do we leave? Jinho asked. 6 hours. The swarm's main fleet is passing through the Kira corridor. 17 billion ships moving in perfect formation. We slip in behind them. Follow their path. They will not expect anyone to be stupid enough to fly toward the Nexus. Because no one is that stupid. Except us. Jinho stood up. He walked to the wall and carefully removed the photograph of Hana. He looked at her smile, her bright eyes, her little hands holding that stuffed rabbit. I promised her I would come home, he said quietly. Every time I leave, I promise. And every time, I wonder if I am lying. Yuna stood up too. She walked over to stand beside him. She looked at the photograph. That is why I chose you, she said. Not because you are not afraid. Everyone is afraid. I chose you because you have something to live for, something to fight for, something that makes you too stubborn to die. Jinho tucked the photograph into his jacket, close to his heart. Tell me honestly, he said. Do you really think we can do this? Yuna did not answer right away. She thought about the question carefully. Thought about the dead star, and the nexus, and the 17 billion drones. Thought about the calculations that said they would fail. No, she finally said. Then why are we going? Yuna smiled. Because sometimes the math is wrong. Because sometimes 1% is enough. Because sometimes the only way to win an unwinnable game is to be too crazy to know you have already lost. She headed toward the door. Stopped. Looked back at him. Meet me in the hangar in 4 hours. Bring only what you need. We travel light. Admiral? Yes? Jinho looked at the photograph in his pocket. Thought about Hana. Thought about Earth. Thought about a future that had a 1% chance of existing. Thank you, he said, for giving us something to do other than wait to die. Yuna nodded once. Then she was gone. Jinho sat back down on his bed. He looked at his old rifle, his empty room, his small life that might end in 6 hours or 6 days. Then he started packing. He brought the photograph. He brought the rifle. He brought a small data chip with video messages from Hana that he watched when the nights were too dark and the silence was too loud. That was all. Everything else was just stuff. And stuff did not matter. Only the mission mattered. Only the people mattered. Jinho was ready to chase it into the heart of a dead star, because that was what humans did. That was what they had always done. And that was why, despite everything, they were still here, still fighting, still hoping, still human. The ship was old. It had been a scout vessel once, fast and quiet. Now it was held together by patches and hope. The paint was gone. The hull was scarred, but the engines still worked, and the shield still functioned when they felt like it. Minji had painted a name on the side in bright blue letters. Foolish hope. You should not have done that, Woojin said when he saw it. It is bad luck to name a ship something negative. Minji laughed. She always laughed, even when things were terrible. Everything about this mission is bad luck. What difference does one more thing make? No one ordered her to remove the name. Somehow, it felt right. The crew met in the small cargo bay before launch. 7 people standing in a circle. 7 humans about to do something that 17 trillion calculations said was impossible. Jinho looked at each of them. Really looked. Taeho was checking his equipment for the 100th time. His fingers moved quickly over detonators and wires and small silver canisters that held enough explosive power to crack a moon. His face was empty of expression. His mind was somewhere far away. Minji was bouncing on her feet like a child waiting for a birthday party. Her hair was short and messy. Her smile was too wide. She kept humming a song that Jinho did not recognize. Woojin stood near the engine access panel, already frowning at something only he could see. He was tall and thin, and his hands were covered in grease stains that never seemed to wash away completely. He talked to machines more than he talked to people. But when he looked at the ship, there was something like love in his eyes. Nari sat in the corner with her eyes closed. Her lips moved silently. Numbers. Patterns. The secret language of the swarm that danced through her head like ghosts. Sometimes, she seemed more machine than human. But there was a photograph tucked in her pocket too. Everyone had something to live for, and Yuna stood at the center, her hands clasped behind her back, her eyes moving from face to face. She was the smallest person in the room. She was also the most dangerous, because she believed they could win. Truly believed. And belief was a weapon more powerful than any bomb. "You all know the mission," Yuna said. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "We fly into swarm territory. We follow their main fleet through the Kira corridor. We stay silent. No shields, no weapons, nothing that can be detected." "What about the patrol drones?" Tejo asked. "They sweep for intruders constantly. Nari will handle them." Yuna looked at the woman in the corner. "If we encounter a drone, she can confuse its sensors. Make us look like debris. Space trash. Nothing worth noticing." Nari opened her eyes. They were dark and deep and saw things that others could not. "I can do it," she said. "But only for short periods. 30 seconds. Maybe 40. After that, the drone will adapt. Then we will be very fast," Minji said, with her too bright smile. "Fast is my specialty." Jinho stepped forward. "Once we pass through the corridor, we approach the dead star. The gravity will be intense. The radiation will be deadly. Everything about that place is designed to kill us. Designed by nature, not by the swarm," Wujin said. He sounded almost happy. "Nature, I can fight. Nature follows rules. Give me a problem with rules, and I will find a solution." "What about the Nexus itself?" Tejo asked. "How do we destroy it?" Yuna pulled out a small device from her pocket. It looked like a metal egg covered in blinking lights. "This is a quantum detonator. The Coalition's scientists made it. There are only 3 in existence. It can trigger a chain reaction in the star's core. The resulting explosion will destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers. Including us," Minji said cheerfully. "Including everything," Yuna agreed. "But the explosion will take time to build. 17 seconds from detonation to full chain reaction. If we can get back to safe distance from an exploding star?" Wujin shook his head. "There is no such thing. Then we will create one." Yuna's eyes were hard. "This is not a mission for people who want to live. This is a mission for people who want to win. If winning means dying, then we die. But we take the swarm with us." Silence filled the room. Each person felt the weight of those words. Each person made their choice. Tejo spoke first. "I lost everyone I loved to the swarm. My wife, my little boy." His voice was flat, but his hands shook slightly. "If I can make sure no one else loses what I lost, then my death has meaning." Minji laughed again. But this time, it was softer. "I have been running from death my whole career. Maybe it is time to stop running and start choosing." Wujin just nodded. He touched the ship's wall gently, like he was saying hello to an old friend. "Foolish. Hope and I will get you there. What happens after is up to you." Nari's eyes had closed again. Numbers danced behind her eyelids. "The pattern must end," she whispered. "The swarm is a disease. I can see it spreading across the galaxy, eating everything. The pattern must end. It must." Jinho touched the photograph in his pocket. Hana's smile. Her bright eyes. The future he wanted to give her. "Then let us begin," he said. They launched at midnight. The Eternal Dawn's hangar doors opened, and Foolish Hope slipped out into the black void like a ghost leaving a dying body. The Kira corridor was ahead. A river of darkness between 2 dead nebulae. And moving through that river was the swarm's main fleet. 17 billion ships. 17 billion killing machines. All of them connected to the Nexus. All of them thinking with one terrible mind. Minji flew them into the current of that metal river. She turned off the shields, turned off the weapons, turned off everything except the most basic life support. Inside the ship, everyone held their breath. The swarm ships were everywhere. Massive destroyers the size of moons. Tiny fighters that swarmed like insects. Factory ships that ate asteroids and built more drones. All of them moving together in perfect formation. Perfect synchronization. Perfect death. And hidden among them, invisible and silent, 7 humans rode the current into the heart of darkness. Hours passed. No one spoke. Speaking felt dangerous. Even breathing felt dangerous. The corridor narrowed. The gravity increased. Woojin watched the engine readings with worried eyes. The ship groaned. Metal twisted. Warning lights flickered on and off. "Easy, girl," Woojin whispered to the ship. Minji's hands danced across the controls. She made tiny adjustments, tiny corrections, keeping them alive through skill and instinct and something that might have been magic. And then they were through. The dead star appeared on their screens. It was not really dead. It was collapsed, crushed into a point of impossible density. Darkness wrapped around it like a blanket. Light bent and twisted near its surface. Nothing escaped that gravity. Nothing survived that radiation. Nothing except the nexus. There it was. At the very center of the impossible. A sphere of perfect black metal. A brain the size of a city. The mind that controlled trillions of machines across 1,000 systems. "I see it," Nari whispered. Her eyes were wide open now, fixed on the screen. "I can feel it. So many numbers. So many patterns. It knows everything. Sees everything." She shivered. "It knows we are coming. Does it know where we are?" Yuna asked quickly. Nari was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "Not yet. But it senses something. A small wrongness. A tiny error in its perfect pattern." She looked at Yuna with haunted eyes. "We need to move fast. Very fast." Jinho stood up. He looked at the dead star on the screen, at the nexus floating in its heart, at the impossible task that waited for them. "Then let us move," he said. "Let us show this machine what humans can do." Foolish hope began its descent into darkness. And somewhere in that darkness, the nexus waited, watched, and began to wonder what strange creature would be foolish enough to come looking for death. The alarm screamed through the ship like a wounded animal. "Contact!" Minji shouted. "Patrol drone! It is scanning us!" Everyone moved at once. Teiho grabbed a weapon. Woojin ran to the engine room. Nari's fingers flew across her console. Her eyes wide, and her lips moving fast. "I can confuse it," she said. "I can make us look like debris. But it will only work for 30 seconds. Maybe less. 1. She 7. 1. Do it," Yuna ordered. Nari began broadcasting false signals. Lies made of numbers. Stories told in the language of machines. On the screen, they could see the patrol drone. It was huge. The size of a building. Its sensors swept back and forth like searchlights, looking for prey. 20 seconds. The drone slowed. Its sensors focused on foolish hope. Inside the ship, no one breathed. No one moved. Everyone watched the screens with fear in their hearts. 15 seconds. "It is not believing me," Nari whispered. "The pattern is wrong. It knows something is wrong." 10 seconds. Jinho stood up. He walked to the airlock. "Commander," Yuna's voice was sharp. "What are you doing?" He was already putting on a maintenance suit. Not a combat suit. Just a thin layer of protection meant for repairing hull damage. It had 90 seconds of oxygen. No weapons. No shields. "I'm going outside," Jinho said. "That is insane." "Yes." He sealed the helmet. "Give me 30 seconds." The airlock opened. Jinho floated out into the void. The cold was absolute. The darkness was everywhere. Above him, the patrol drone turned slowly, its sensors reaching toward the ship like hungry fingers. Jinho did not fight. Fighting was what the machines expected. Fighting was logical. Fighting was predictable. Instead, he flew toward the drone. Just a man in a thin suit. Just a tiny speck of life in an ocean of death. He landed on the drone's hull like a dust particle landing on a mountain. His magnetic boots clicked against the metal. The drone did not notice. He was too small. Too insignificant. Not worth calculating. That was the human way. Be small. Be insignificant. And then strike where no one was looking. Jinho found the maintenance port. Every machine had one. Even killing machines needed repairs sometimes. He pulled out his plasma cutter and began to work. 60 seconds of oxygen left. The panel came loose. Inside, he saw the neural relay. The brain piece that connected this drone to the Nexus. It pulsed with cold light. Data flowed through it like blood through veins. Jinho pulled out a small device. Nari had given it to him before launch. She had called it a whisper. A way to talk to the swarm in their own language. He plugged it in. 40 seconds of oxygen. Numbers filled his mind. Not words. Not thoughts. Just pure mathematics. The language of machines. The code that told the drone what to see and what to ignore. Jinho closed his eyes. He remembered what Nari had taught him. Remembered the patterns. Remembered the lies. I am debris, he told the machine. I am nothing. I have always been nothing. I was never here. The drone's sensors flickered. Processed. Calculated. 20 seconds of oxygen. Inside the ship, everyone watched. Yuna's hands were fists. Minji had stopped breathing. Teho held his weapon so tight, his knuckles were white. 10 seconds of oxygen. The drone turned away. Its sensors swept in a different direction. It moved on, continuing its patrol, completely convinced that it had found nothing worth reporting. Jinho released the neural relay. He pushed off from the drone's hull. He floated toward Foolish Hope with 3 seconds of oxygen left. The airlock opened. Wujin grabbed him, pulled him inside. The door slammed shut, and air rushed back in with a sharp hiss. Jinho pulled off his helmet. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. But he was alive. Minji laughed. It was not her normal laugh. It was wild. Amazed. Almost hysterical. You beautiful lunatic. She gasped. You absolute, beautiful lunatic. One down, Jinho said quietly. Yuna looked at him. There was something new in her eyes. Something that had not been there before. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was understanding. Maybe it was simply seeing, for the first time, exactly what a human was capable of. That should not have worked, she said. No. Jinho leaned against the wall. He was exhausted. Every muscle hurt. His lungs burned from the thin oxygen. But it did. Because the machines do not expect stupidity. They calculate logic. They predict rational behavior. They do not know how to handle someone who does the impossible, because they are too stubborn to know it is impossible. Nari was still at her console. Her face was pale. He is right, she whispered. I felt the drone's confusion. For a moment, just a moment. It did not know what was happening. That moment of confusion was enough. She looked at Jinho with new eyes. You broke the pattern. Humans are good at that, Jinho said. They continued their descent. The dead star grew larger on the screens. The gravity grew stronger. The ship groaned and shook as forces tried to tear it apart. Wujin ran from system to system, making repairs, whispering encouragement, holding Foolish Hope together through willpower and skill. His hands were burned from hot metal. His clothes were soaked with sweat, but he did not stop. He would not stop until the ship did. Minji flew through gravitational currents that should have crushed them. She found paths through chaos. She danced between death and survival with every tiny movement of her hands. Her face was calm. Her eyes were focused. She was in her element. She was alive. Teho prepared his charges. Each one was a small sun waiting to be born. Each one was powerful enough to crack a planet. He handled them like children. Gentle, careful, loving in a strange way. And Nari watched the Nexus grow larger and larger on her screen. She could feel it now. its thoughts, its patterns, its cold, perfect intelligence. It knows we are here, she said suddenly. Everyone froze. How much time do we have? Yuna asked. Nari closed her eyes. Numbers danced through her mind. Minutes. Maybe less. It is processing. Analyzing. Deciding what we are and what to do about us. Then we need to move faster, Jinho said. Minji pushed the engines harder. Woojin screamed at her that the ship could not take much more. She ignored him. There was no choice now. Speed or death. Those were the only options. The Nexus filled their screens. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Perfect blackness against the dying light of the collapsed star. A sphere of pure thought. Pure control. The mind of 1 trillion machines. And inside that mind, Nari felt something she had never felt before. Curiosity. The Nexus was curious about them. About these strange little creatures flying into its domain. About these beings that did not behave like anything in its calculations. It is watching us, Nari whispered. Not attacking. Watching. It wants to understand. Jinho smiled. It was a dangerous smile. The smile of a man who had already decided to win. Then let us show it something it has never seen before, he said. Let us show it what happens when humans decide to stop being afraid. He turned to Yuna. How close do we need to get? 500 meters, she said. The detonator must be placed at the exact center of the Nexus. Any further, and the chain reaction might not reach the star's core. 500 meters. Inside the heart of an enemy that controlled trillions of machines. Inside the gravity well of a dead star. Inside a place where nothing alive should be able to exist. Impossible. I will do it, Jinho said. Give me the detonator. Yuna shook her head. No. I will go. This was my plan. My responsibility. Number 5. Number 5. Number 5. Number 5. Admiral. That is an order, Commander. They looked at each other. 2 humans. 2 soldiers. Both willing to die for a 1% chance. Then we go together, Jinho said. Yuna hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. Together, she agreed. Taeho handed them the detonator. Minji brought the ship as close as she could. Woojin held the engines together with prayers and curses. Nari kept the Nexus confused for precious extra seconds, and Jinho and Yuna stepped into the airlock. The door opened. The Nexus waited, and 2 humans dove into the dark, carrying a small metal egg that held the death of 1 trillion machines. The darkness was complete. Not the darkness of night. Not the darkness of space. This was something deeper. Something alive. Something hungry. Jinho and Yuna flew through it together. Their suits were not meant for this. The gravity pulled at them with invisible hands. The radiation burned through their shields. Every second brought them closer to death. And ahead, the Nexus waited. It was bigger than Jinho had imagined. A sphere of black metal 3 kilometers wide. Its surface was covered with sensors and weapons and things he had no name for. Data flowed across it, like lightning. Thoughts moved through it like storms. It is beautiful, Yuna whispered through the communication link. It is dead, Jinho replied. It just does not know it yet. The Nexus attacked. Drones came from everywhere. Small ones, fast ones. They swarmed like angry insects. Their weapons lit up the darkness with deadly light. Inside Foolish Hope, Minji screamed and threw the ship into a wild spin. Woojin's repairs fell apart around him. Taeho grabbed a weapon and fired at anything that got close. Nari broadcast confusion and lies into the drone network, buying seconds that felt like years. Keep going, Taeho shouted. Do not stop for us. Jinho did not stop. He flew faster. Yuna flew beside him. The detonator was in her hands, clutched against her chest like a precious child. The Nexus threw everything at them. Gravity wells that tried to crush them. Energy beams that burned their suits. drones that exploded against their shields. It was endless. It was infinite. It was everything the galaxy's greatest enemy could create. And two humans flew through it anyway. Jinho's suit began to fail. Warning lights screamed in his helmet. His oxygen was running low. His shields were dying. He felt the cold of space beginning to creep through the cracks. "Keep going," he told himself. "Keep going. For Hana. For Earth. For everyone." Yuna was beside him. Her suit was worse. One arm was dead. Blood floated in small drops around her. But her eyes were still fierce. Her hands still held the detonator. "Almost there," she gasped. 200 meters. The Nexus screamed. It was a sound that should not exist in vacuum. A sound made of pure electromagnetic rage. It broadcast directly into their minds. Hate, fear, confusion. The emotions of a god who was beginning to understand that it might die. 100 meters. Jinho's legs stopped working. His suit had given up trying to save him. He was just a man now. Just flesh and bone and stubborn human will, flying through the heart of impossible. 50 meters. Yuna's oxygen was gone. She held her breath, held the detonator, held on to life with nothing but determination. 20 meters. The Nexus opened. A door appeared in its perfect surface. Inside, Jinho saw the core. The true brain. A small sphere of pure light that held all the thoughts and plans and memories of a trillion machines. 10 meters. Jinho grabbed Yuna's hand. She looked at him through her cracked helmet. Her face was pale. Her lips were blue. But she was smiling. 1%, she whispered. He smiled back. That same dangerous smile that had made him legend. 1% is enough. They released the detonator. It floated into the core of the Nexus. The light surrounded it, embraced it, began to understand what it was. And then Jinho grabbed Yuna and threw them both backward. Away from the Nexus. Away from the detonator. Away from the explosion that was about to change everything. 17 seconds. That was what Yuna had said. 17 seconds. From detonation to full chain reaction. Minji saw them falling. She threw foolish hope toward them with everything the engines had left. Wujin screamed that the ship would tear apart. She did not care. 12 seconds. The airlock opened. Taeho reached out with both hands. He grabbed Yuna's arm. Pulled. Nari grabbed Jinho. Pulled. They tumbled into the ship in a mess of limbs and blood and hope. 7 seconds. Go, Jinyu screamed. Go now. Minji did not need to be told. She slammed the engines to full power. Foolish Hope screamed in protest. Metal bent. Systems failed. The ship was dying, but it was flying. Flying away from the dead star. Flying away from the Nexus. 3 seconds. The detonator activated. The Nexus understood what was happening. For one brief moment, the most powerful intelligence in the galaxy felt something it had never felt before. Fear. Then the chain reaction began. 0 seconds. The dead star woke up. For one glorious moment, it burned again. Not with natural fire. With something stranger. Something that came from the quantum detonator. Something that reached into the heart of matter itself and told it to let go. The Nexus evaporated. 17 billion drones lost their connection to their master. Across the galaxy, swarm ships went dark. Silent. Confused. Their patterns were broken. Their god was dead. And foolish hope rode the shockwave like a leaf in a hurricane. The ship spun, crashed, broke. Systems failed one by one. The lights went out. The air grew thin. In the darkness, 7 humans held on to each other and waited to learn if they would live or die. Then, silence. Complete, perfect silence. Minji was the first to speak. Did we win? Static crackled through the damaged communication system. Then a voice. Taeho's voice. coming from somewhere in the darkness. Nexus destroyed. Chain reaction complete. The swarm is. He paused, laughed. A strange, broken, beautiful laugh. The swarm is dead. Somewhere in the ship, someone started crying. Maybe Nari. Maybe Woojin. Maybe all of them. It was hard to tell, and it did not matter. 3 days later, the Coalition fleet found them. Foolish Hope was barely recognizable. More wreckage than ship. How it had survived the explosion was a mystery that engineers would argue about for generations. High Strategist Korath boarded the ship personally. He walked through the damaged corridors until he found the survivors. They were sitting together in the cargo bay. Dirty. Wounded. Exhausted beyond words. But alive. Korath looked at them for a long moment. His crystal body flickered with colors that had no human names. Finally, he spoke. The probability of success was 1%, he said slowly. The probability of survival was even less. By every calculation, every simulation, every logical analysis, you should be dead. Jinho looked up at him. His arm was in a sling. His face was bruised. He had not slept in days. But he smiled. That same dangerous smile. Probability is just a number, he said. Humans do not believe in numbers. Korath tilted his head. The gesture looked almost human. Then, what do you believe in? Jinho looked at his crew. At Minji, who was humming softly. At Woojin, who was already trying to repair something. At Taeho, whose hands had finally stopped shaking. At Nari, whose eyes were peaceful for the first time. At Yuna, who sat beside him with a small smile on her tired face. Each other, he said. We believe in each other. Korath was silent for a long time. His crystal body shifted through colors as he processed this information. Finally, he made a sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps, he said, we have been calculating the wrong things all along. The war was over. The swarm was dead. And the galaxy had learned something new about the strange, soft, stubborn creatures called humans. They did not fight because they calculated victory. They fought because they refused to accept defeat. They did not survive because logic said they should. They survived because something inside them, something that had no name and no number, simply refused to stop. 1 week later, Jinho returned to Earth. Hana was waiting for him at the spaceport. She was holding her stuffed rabbit. Her eyes were bright with tears. When she saw him, she ran. He caught her in his arms, held her tight, felt her small heart beating against his chest. You came back, she whispered. You always come back. Jinho closed his eyes, thought about dead stars and alien gods and the 1% chance that had somehow been enough. Always, he promised. I will always come back. Above them, the sky was full of stars, 1,000 lights in the endless dark. And somewhere out there, the story was being told. The story of 7 humans who flew into impossible and came out the other side. The story of how 1% changed everything. The story of what happens when humans decide that the numbers do not matter. Only the fight matters. Only the hope matters. Only the stubborn, beautiful, impossible refusal to give up. That is the human way. That is why they survived. That is why they always will.